Parfait.
Pas ridicule.
Fais pas ça.
À l'aide! Au secours, s'il vous plaît!
In a fancy hotel in front of the beach in France, a handsome man packs his bags as his lover takes a shower. The man's name is Adrien. He's tall and slender with Romanesque facial features that attract the attention of a lot of people. His lover is the beautiful Margaret. She's blonde with bright blue eyes and she's a couple of months pregnant. Adrien is writing a letter to a friend of theirs named Julia, an older, pretty woman, saying that there's a good amount of money for her to spend when they leave. After writing the letter, Adrien and Margaret start getting ready to leave the hotel. Margaret dons a wig and Adrien puts on a fake mustache. Meanwhile, an older man named Simon drives toward the hotel they are staying at with a disgruntled expression. His cell phone rings. It's his daughter, Lucy, calling to know where he is. Lucy and her mother, Carol, are worried about Simon and what he's planning to do. Adrien is waiting for Margaret to finish getting ready when someone knocks on the door. Before Adrien can open instead of Margaret, he hears the loud sound of a shot being fired. When he runs to the living room, he sees Margaret on the ground, bleeding from a wound on her shoulder while Simon runs away. Flash forward to a couple of months after Margaret was shot, and Simon is on trial. The old man looks tired and drained as he waits for his verdict. He's anxious and nervous, even after his lawyer promises him everything will be fine. The first witness called to testify is a housekeeper at an actress's mansion. The actress is Martha Duval. She used to be famous and respected. But now she's older, the new generation doesn't know who she is. Martha is egocentric and despises the fact that people don't know her anymore. Being old bothers Martha so much that she tries to always have younger people as her lovers. She met Adrien, a handsome gigolo who spends his time trying to please older and lonely women, at one of her plays. At first sight, Adrien was enchanted by Martha. She's a beauty, with dark hair and big, blue eyes the color of a clear sky. The enchantment breaks the minute she opens her mouth. Martha can be brash and she doesn't care about people's feelings, only her own. Martha flirts with Adrien and he falls for her. A month later, he's living at her house under the pretense of writing a book about her life. Martha pays him to be intimate with her, and the book is a bonus. Adrien hates his life with Martha, and he despises her with a passion. The actress often puts him down and considers him stupid and only a pretty face. Adrien's mother testifies that her son used to be a good dancer, and he had an amazing future ahead of him if it weren't for a bike accident. He hurt himself badly and would never be able to dance professionally again. His girlfriend at the time dumped him, and Adrien became depressed. He started to drink and go out with older women. When his mother found out he was selling exchange for money, they cut ties. Adrien is a smart man, but he has no ambitions. He goes through life one day at a time, and if he has a woman to support him, then he's good. At the same time, living a life like this is lonely and demeaning, especially with a woman like Martha. At one of Martha's parties, Adrien meets a mysterious, beautiful woman that changed his life from the moment they met. The woman is Margaret. She's a feminine version of Adrien, selling her body and company to other men in exchange for money. She's often the young, beautiful mistress of rich men in French society. At Martha's party, she goes with the director of Nice's theater, but he doesn't give her too much attention, something that annoys her. When she sees Adrien playing piano for Martha and being humiliated by her, she becomes interested in him. She quickly notices that he's Martha's boy toy, and when he's alone, she approaches him. Martha is very seductive and she can reduce any man to their knees, including an experienced one like Adrien. With her personality and mystery, she makes him steal the director's car and ruin it in a lake at Martha's house. Adrien is so besotted by the blonde that he doesn't realize she made him commit a crime. Not only that, but Margaret also stole a couple of Martha's jewelry. Martha noticed Adrien's absence and then she found out he had been with Margaret. At the end of the party, when all guests leave, Martha confronts Adrien and demands he sleeps with her. After being humiliated by her at the party, the last thing Adrien wants is to be in close contact with Martha, so he leaves to cool his head. He goes to meet his former lover, a woman named Julia. They have a nice friendship, despite Julia not being able to afford him anymore because she was conned by her ex-husband. Julia has contact with a lot of rich people, and she knows all the gossip about their lives. She has a big grudge against Simon Laurenti and his family because it was one of his brothers that helped her ex deceive her. After they talk for a bit, they go their separate ways. Adrien goes back to Martha's mansion calmer and willing to face her again without the urge to eliminate her for good. When he returns, Martha is talking with her employees about the jewelry that was stolen. She even asks Adrien if he did it, but he denies it and she believes his words because she doesn't think he has the brains to steal. Later on, they are intimate but Adrien pretends he's sleeping with a younger version of Martha. On the following day, Adrien meets with the mysterious blonde from Martha's party. She's different from the way she was, with her blue summer dress and wild hair. She's an effortlessly beautiful woman, and Adrien wants her more than anything. Margaret is reticent and she thinks Adrian is too broke for her. At the same time, he's fun and they have a lot of similarities, mainly in the indulgent way they spend their lives. During the day, they go to fancy restaurants and leave without paying, and are intimate many times in public restrooms. Adrian asks for her number, and Margaret hesitates. She never had a good record of relationships, and all her previous boyfriends hurt her physically and emotionally. Adrian seems like a nice guy, but she doesn't know if she's willing to go down that path again. He insists, and Margaret ends up giving her number to him. Margaret and Adrian start dating after that day. They start going out every day, and Margaret opens up about her life. She has a daughter from a previous client, and she does everything for her daughter. She tells Adrian that she planned to get pregnant by a rich man, and it worked, but the man refused to pay for anything related to the child. During the trial, 2 of Margaret's former friends testify that Margaret has a penchant for lying, and that her child wasn't from a rich man, but from a boyfriend she had. Margaret never had luck with any man, not even her father figure, her stepfather. He hurt her as she was growing up, and she was also hurt by many boyfriends. Margaret is very clear when she tells Adrian that her objective in life is to have a nice place for her and her daughter, with no man next to her. Adrian is too infatuated to realize that Margaret is too hurt for a relationship. To make matters worse, they continue going out with their clients, and Adrian is often jealous of Margaret. When they get too deep in their relationship and Margaret recognizes she's falling for Adrian, she breaks up with him. She tells him they have no future together, and even though Adrian is infatuated with her now that she's old and not as beautiful, he will drop her like a hot potato and move on to another younger woman. That's what all the men she has known do to their wives, and Margaret doesn't want the pain of that happening to her. Besides, she plans to get married and divorce a rich man, and for that to happen, she needs to be single. Adrian goes back to Martha's house, sad and heartbroken. He genuinely loves Margaret and he wants to give her and her daughter a good life. While reading a play for Martha, he gets an idea to help Margaret and earn a lot of money. They are going to choose a rich man for Margaret to seduce, and if he's married, Adrian is going to help in seducing his wife to separate the couple. Then, Margaret has a clear path to getting pregnant and marrying the man. The difference from what they already do is that Margaret is going to pretend to be someone else. As for Adrian, he also plans to marry Martha and make her fall in love with him, and when she does, he's going to propose. Adrian excitedly tells the plan to Margaret, and with the help of Giulia, they choose their perfect victim. The man they choose is Simon Laurenti. Giulia has a personal grudge against him and he has money, though he's not rich. Simon is married to a woman he loves, Carol, and he has a daughter that is about to get married. He and Carol have a boring and uneventful life after so many years together, which makes Margaret and Adrian's lives easier. After offering her a solution to her problems, Margaret takes Adrian back and they start dating again. Despite being broke, Adrian cares for Margaret and he's not the kind of man that would hurt her as her other partners did. She cries when she realizes that he's genuinely good and that their relationship could work. Adrian is also very caring to Margaret's daughter, and he's willing to do anything for her. Margaret starts getting ready for her new character. She is going to be an English heiress that went to France to look for a summer apartment for her rich parents in Nice. She gets in close contact with Simon because he's one of the owners of the building and the one to introduce her to the apartment. Margaret changes her accent to an English one and starts wearing glasses to pretend to be a former French literature student. Everything she does is deliberate to seduce Simon. By pretending she's a rich heiress interested in an older man, Simon won't suspect her of being a gold digger. Their first contact goes smoothly. Margaret is a great actress and she perfects her English accent when she speaks French. She acts coy and goofy with her summer dresses and cheap purses. She's adoringly funny and Simon soon falls for her act. He thinks she's a breath of fresh air, very beautiful and liberating. Meanwhile, Adrian goes after Carol to seduce her and put a damper on her relationship with Simon. Carol is a kind woman, and she never betrayed her husband in their many years together. Her life isn't as exciting as when she was younger, but she loves Simon and wants to spend the rest of her life with him. Adrian meets her during a lunch she has with Martha. He tries to seduce her in many ways, but Carol isn't a single rich woman like he's used to. Desperate to catch her attention, he kisses her and takes her breath away. Carol is confused and weirded out by his behavior, but after the kiss, she feels shaken and guilty about it. They exchange numbers and Adrian asks her out on a date at a hotel. At the same time, Simon starts to give more attention to Margaret. They talk for hours on the phone, even when he's on a dinner date with Carol. Luckily for him, she doesn't notice him messaging another woman because she's also messaging Adrian. Carol and Adrian meet again at the hotel and they sleep together. Adrian vanishes right after, leaving Carol with the guilt of what she has done. Instead of keeping it a secret like many cheating spouses do, Carol came clean to Simon. It's a surprise to him that his wife of so many years cheated. But it's also a commodity. Now he can do the same to her without feeling so guilty. Carol is confused by Simon's nonchalant behavior after she tells him she cheated, and it shows her that their marriage wasn't as good as she thought. After Carol's confession, Simon and Margaret start having an affair. At first, it was only dinner and going out together, all while Julia gave Margaret pointers about how to behave with him and supervise them. Julia also has a plan to make money by using Margaret's influence over Simon. She talks to an investor that is crazy to have a partnership with Simon's family company, but Simon hates him and they already had a physical fight. She exchanges Margaret's influence for money, and the man pays them a lot to get the deal with Simon. Margaret subtly manipulates him to accept the deal, all to impress her. Simon is so infatuated that he decides to leave Carol and move into the same apartment Margaret wanted to buy for her parents. In reality, it's the apartment Margaret wants to have when she marries and divorces him. Carol pleads with him not to leave, because he doesn't know the woman and she might be conning him. Simon refuses to listen to her and almost runs over her with his car when he's leaving the house. Carol is a mess. She feels guilty about her mistake and thinks Simon decided to have an affair because of her. At the same time, she's angry at Simon for destroying years of marriage for a younger woman he barely knows. While Margaret is manipulating Simon to fall in love with her, Adrian is doing the same with Martha. After so many months of living with her, he knows exactly what makes her tick. Martha is lonely, despite always being surrounded by people, and she's insecure about relationships because she was left by her biological parents and husband. In her real life, she acts as if she's in a movie. She even hires 2 actors to pretend they are her parents, all for the sake of appearances. That's all that matters to Martha. She is in a glass castle, very beautiful but easily broken. Adrian pretends he's interested in the real her. Instead of pretending to be her fake boyfriend, he pretends to be her real boyfriend. He does everything she wants and even tells her that he broke up with the woman from the party she saw him with. Martha is attracted to his lies as an insect to a ravenous spider. She has no idea that Adrian hates her and he wants to destroy her. Her newfound trust for the younger man helps Adrian in his schemes with Margaret and Julia. With the help of Julia, Adrian steals Martha's paintings and replaces them with fake ones. Unfortunately for them, Julia finds out that her paintings are worthless because they are also fake. Adrian and Margaret continue to meet whenever they have the chance, to discuss their future and how their plan is going. Adrian notices that Margaret seems to have feelings for Simon, but she promises him she doesn't. She thinks he's an old, lonely man and she feels no attraction to him. It's another lie from Margaret because she slowly starts believing in her own fake life. Simon is a nice man. He treats her with respect and gives her the opportunity of living the life she always wanted. When they sleep together for the first time, it's time for the next part of their plan. Adrian travels with Martha to another city, and Margaret travels with Simon to Italy. Adrian is extremely jealous of Margaret and Simon, and he starts feeling insecure about her. She swears she doesn't feel anything for Simon, but Adrian is doubtful. After their respective trips, Adrian is still angry at Margaret when they accidentally meet at Martha's new play. Margaret is there with Simon, and Adrian immediately goes after her, not caring that it was an important day for Martha. He's not the only man to recognize Margaret there. The director of the theater and Margaret's previous client notice her with Simon and he isn't pleased. After the play, Adrian is celebrating with Martha at her place when Margaret sends him a message to meet her at the pool. He goes there and falls into the water with her. Margaret tries to make him forget his insecurity using her body, and they get intimate right under Martha's roof. She asks Adrian to make a baby with her right then, but before they can finish, Martha knocks on the door. Margaret quickly goes away and a clueless Martha replaces her. While being intimate with her, Adrian thinks about Margaret. Weeks go by with them seducing their partners. When Margaret finds she is pregnant, she knows it's time to step up. Adrian prepares a beautiful dinner at the theater for Martha, and Margaret does the same in the apartment. Martha is surprised when she sees the dinner and falls for Adrian's fake smiles and platitudes. He tells her that their relationship was tenuous at first, but he admires her and wants to have more. He proposes to her and Martha accepts it. She had only been married once before, and her husband cheated on her with another man. The fact that she's accepting Adrian shows that she's really into him, so much so that she's willing to try another marriage. Things do not go so well for Margaret. Simon is happy with the dinner, but his expression slowly shifts when Margaret proposes. Simon is still married to Carol and he has no intentions of divorcing her. Although he's cheating on her with Margaret, the younger girl is just a passing fancy, but Carol is the real deal. They have too much history for him to end things like that. Margaret sees her carefully constructed dream falling into pieces right in front of her. Not only did Simon not agree with her proposal, but he also doesn't want to have a baby. When Margaret tells him she's pregnant, he tells her he needs to think and leaves. In her anger and disappointment, Margaret takes his gun from her purse and points it at him. Simon is surprised and frightened that the sweet, dorky girl changed her personality so quickly. It's a clear threat to him, though the gun is empty. At the same time, the fact that she kept the gun in her purse shows that Margaret is ready for anything to happen. Simon quickly leaves the house and goes straight to his family home. He's ashamed and regrets cheating on his wife and betraying his family like that. To put salt in his wounds, when he arrives home, he spies his family having a nice dinner together and he's not there. When his daughter and son-in-law leave, he watches Carol dancing alone for a moment and approaches. Carol is still mad at him. She thinks he's stupid to give up their life for a stranger, but he decides to make, and there's nothing else she can do. Simon kisses her after she puts a knife on his neck, and they reconcile. At that moment, Simon decides that having a younger woman in his life is a complication he doesn't need, and he was quite content before Margaret arrived. Margaret starts freaking out after being rejected like that by Simon. She goes to the beach to cry alone and tries calling Adrian, but he's too busy proposing to Martha. She keeps sending him messages asking him to meet with her, and when he doesn't answer back, she tells him she hates him and doesn't need him. Margaret is a reactive woman, but she's also very calculating. She needs a new plan now that Simon didn't follow theirs, and she doesn't think she can count on Adrian anymore. As she told him before, her objective in life was to have a life for herself and her daughter, with no men involved. She's going to follow through with her own objective, regardless of her feelings for Adrian. Margaret goes to Julia's house, and there they plot the next step in their plan. A few days later, Adrian goes after Margaret and finds her at the apartment alone. Her daughter is also there, which is surprising to him. Margaret is a mess. Her hair is dirty and unbrushed, there are dark shadows under her eyes, and it's obvious she's distressed. She explains to Adrian that Simon went away for the weekend, and that's why her daughter was there. Adrian gets jealous when he imagines the life Margaret led with the man, and she tries to reassure him that she doesn't like Simon. When they are in her bedroom, she sees Simon parking his car on the street, and they quickly have to hide her daughter and the mess. Adrian hides with the little girl in the closet. From there, he can see and hear what they are talking about. Adrian's fears come to fruition when he sees how affected Margaret is when Simon tells her he doesn't want the baby. Simon explains that he's too old to have a kid and that he can pay for her to take care of it. Margaret starts crying and yells at Simon that he's just like everybody else. Adrian notices that Margaret also started seeing Simon as a boyfriend, and that hurts him deeply. That wasn't what they had agreed on. When Simon leaves, Adrian takes Margaret and her daughter back home and then leaves her. Margaret tries to make him stay, but for the second time that day, a man walks away from her. She gets angry at Adrian again and yells that she doesn't need him either. Adrian marries Martha in a simple ceremony, only for them and some close friends. Margaret goes there to try and talk to him again, and she manages to convince him to continue the plan with her. Adrian loves her too much to leave her completely, and though her part didn't work, he did. He was now married to Martha, and their plan was going to move on. After Adrian's wedding, Margaret invites Simon to go out with her again. Since she didn't get him to divorce his wife and marry her, she needs to do something drastic. She poisons Simon until he can barely walk, and calls for Adrian's help. Meanwhile, Adrian is on his honeymoon with Martha and decides to give her a gift. His book is finished, and the name is The Young Groom. Martha is excited about it and starts to immediately read it. She thought it was her biography, but it was an account of how much Adrian despises her and how pathetic she truly is. As she reads the books, she cries and feels humiliated by him. He destroys her, even comparing her to Margaret, the woman he really loves. When she angrily confronts him, Adrian admits to pretending to love her to get her to trust him. He wrote many things about her that could destroy her reputation, and he wants money to not publish the book. Martha is sad and angry that he conned her like that, but her reputation is the most important thing to her. She's going to pay him to keep quiet. Back at the trial, she admits she had to sell her house to pay him the amount he wanted. Adrian goes after Margaret to help her with Simon, and Margaret wants him to hit her so she can accuse Simon of violence. At first, Adrian doesn't want to hurt her, but when she starts calling him names and comparing him to Simon, he loses it and pushes her. Margaret falls hard and hits her head. She can barely contain the smile of happiness when she sees the damage Adrian inflicted, and she's looking forward to pressing charges against Simon. The old man is so poisoned that he passes out, but not before seeing Margaret with Adrian. The following day, Margaret goes to the police and accuses Simon of hurting her. Simon and his family are interrogated, but his reputation is already in shambles. His daughter is ashamed of him, and he lost his wife for good after betraying her again and going out with Margaret. When Margaret sends him a message saying that if he pays her, she will remove her statement, Simon realizes that she's a con woman. He starts investigating her and finds out that their entire relationship was fake. He even finds out that she had a deal with his investor to receive money when Simon accepted the investment. The pieces start falling into place. At the trial, Simon's lawyer presents a piece of evidence to convince the jury that Simon didn't go after Margaret on purpose. A few months after she pressed charges on him, Margaret calls him crying, saying that Adrian forced her to do everything and that he's going to eliminate her. She's staying at a hotel with Adrian when Simon arrives there to help her. What neither man knew was that they were both being played, because Margaret only thinks about herself and her daughter. Margaret points a gun and shoots. Simon runs, knowing that he's going to be charged for attempting to eliminate her. This version of the events aren't credible for the jury. It seemed impossible that a woman would, much less when she was pregnant. For lack of evidence in his favor, Simon is condemned to 6 years in prison. In prison, he receives a letter from Adrian. The gigolo has no idea where Margaret is, and he confesses that she also played him. After Margaret was shot, Martha's jewelry was found in Adrian's luggage. He's charged with robbery and spends 6 months in prison, with no contact with Margaret. When he was released, he moved to another country to start over, and he continues to be a gigolo for an older woman. The money he received from Martha, he gave to Julia. He found out that Julia had been helping Margaret all this time, and they even lied about the paintings he stole from Martha. The money they made with the paintings, Martha's house, and the investor made them rich enough to move out and start over. Adrian doesn't know where they are, nor does he have evidence to help Simon out. He apologizes for his part in his conviction and says that his life isn't great either. In the end, Margaret appears in Italy with Julia. They opened a huge hotel in Tuscany, and Margaret is a rich woman. Her daughter is going to have a good life, just like she always wanted, and her new baby, whose father no one knows, is going to grow up healthy and happy. No man is ever going to disrupt her life or hurt her. Margaret gets everything she ever wanted while Adrian nurses the wounds of being played at his own game.